Nick Diaz, the Chair of Community Board 8.
Hi, I'm Elizabeth Caputo. I'm the Chair of Community Board 7, Upper West Side.
Morris, Chair, Community Liaison, and Board President's Office.
Christine Berthier, Chair, Community Board 4.
Gigi Lee, Chair, Community Board 3.
Ewan from Councilmember Chin's office.
Kathy McFahey's Community Board 1.
Angela Sal, District Manager, Community Board 10.
Bob Fallow, DM, Community Board 4.
Yutha Prince, DM, CB9.
Susan Stetzer, DMCB3.
Nick Athanel from CB5.
Okay, go ahead.
Jesse Bodie, Member of President's Office.
Patricia Saccarelli, Member of President's Office.
Sarah Goldman, Department of City Planning.
Department of City Planning.
You're going to be much more interesting than anything I can say. Go ahead.
We try hard.
You do. You succeed. Go
Bert
ahead.
Lazary, Community Board 4, Co-Chair of the Budget Task Force.
Great.
Julie Rivers, Councilman Agnes.
Diana Howard, Borough President Office.
Will Fulbrook from the Borough President's Office.
Daniel Rabbits from the Borough President's Office.
Giovanni Craig, Borough President's Office.
Adam O'Neill, Councilmember of the Robbins Office.
Councilmember reps, you're welcome to sit. So go ahead. Come up. There's a couple of you. Go ahead. Keep going.
Marla Silverstein, intern.
Great.
Tori Sasaki, intern. Rachel Stern, intern.
We have 45 interns, I just want you to know. And I love every single one of them, anybody who knows me. I want to tell you a story. So I'm at some hospital opening, I don't even know where I was. And this guy gives me his card, and he says, I was your intern in like 1900 or something. And I said, I gave him the date, his college, the date he graduated, and what he worked on. Ooh, was I proud of myself. I was really proud of myself. Go ahead.
Joseph Strong, Councilmember Ben Kalis' office.
Jack Strigo, Councilman Levine's office.
I'm Jack Archer, intern.
Stephanie Arroyo, Councilmember Melissa Margarito's office.
Daria Quinset, Councilmember Madison's office.
Okay. All right, I mean,
Manhattan Borough President's office.
Great, okay.
Jesus Perez, Manhattan Borough President's office.
Any council staff want to come up and pull up a chair, feel free. You're welcome to do that. Okay, before we heard from city planning, I just want to say a couple of things. First of all, some of the issues that I think you know that we've all been working on that talk about what I assume your community district needs will be the affordable housing, economic development, livable neighborhoods, resiliency, and reducing inequality. I will tell you it's interesting, in whatever discussions we've had, I think mostly around South Street Seaport, for whatever reason, the resiliency has come up. Resiliency has come up as being a huge interest of New Yorkers, in a way perhaps more locally, meaning downtown, but it's higher sometimes than other topics in terms of people's interest. So I think you should just keep that in mind. I have no idea if that'll translate to Uptown. Maybe it will. But I just thought that was a very interesting comment that Catherine and I learned when we were going through the comments regarding South Street Seaport, because I would not have guessed that.
100% approval rating.
Yeah. But also interest. I mean, you know, in terms of not just, there were other 100%, but resiliency was top of the list in terms of people's interest, in addition to wanting to do something about it. So I thought that was very interesting.
I'm sorry, Borough President. So resiliency meaning the ability to withstand or to react, respond to
any kind of disaster.
Yeah,
obviously,
okay.
they were talking about water and so on, but
right.
any kind of disaster. And people are nervous about it. I don't blame them. And then the other issue I just want to mention is just the whole issue with the open, I think some of the data, and Aldrin should talk more about this, but we are working hard on the issue of training and open data, which again is somewhat of a budget issue. I got an email today from a reporter. There's this wonderful reporter, Kristen Merriweather, who works for Gotham and Gazette, and she's a data nut. And you really should look at her columns. She had a column yesterday regarding an app in Boston that they really have figured out how to make the budget, and this isn't your problem, but it is all of our problems. It's the mayor's budget office. Really, really transparent, which, you know, even though it's up on the web, very few people can understand what is in that budget. So Boston apparently has put a great deal of time into trying to figure that out. It might be something else that as a borough board or as community boards and borough president's office we want to try to work on. It's not something that's in our job description, but it adds to the transparency that I love to see be part of what we are all about. And I just want to also, the only other thing is just trying to figure out how, what's the other thing I want to mention? Alden, you have to help me here. I think we want to just figure out in terms of the work that we've done in terms of all the land use seminars. I want to thank you very much for participating. quite a few of them, budget and land use, are up on our website. They are extremely well organized and can be perhaps a resource for your members. Back to Christine's point that the more that you can educate your members, the better. That's for you, so I just want to mention that. We are also working on several portals, and again, I think we can talk about them later, but we have a community portal, the ZODA is a zoning portal, and of course there's a census fact finder. I mention all of this because I think as part of what we're talking about district needs, we also try how do you translate it so that the public can understand what we're doing. And I want to add that to the discussion. I don't know if you want to add anything else.
Yes. So this presentation today, we're very excited to have the Department of City Planning because for the last 6 months we focused a lot on providing the resources and the data tools that community boards will need. A lot of that will happen and occur around the statement of district needs. So much effort and research goes into those statements that we want to make sure that they're useful and that they're broad-based and that they involve many community board members in their production and preparation of it. Will Colgrove mentioned that as part of the work we want to do, we want to see that the statement of district needs, as they appear on the different community board websites, that they're there, that they can be searchable, that they're sortable, and that they can be used way beyond just the function of that 1 month period or 2 month during consultations with city agencies. So we're very happy to have Sarah Goldwyn, if you could come up, and Ralph Blessing there from the director, the deputy director of planning coordination at the Department of City Planning. And many of the tools that we've highlighted in our community board trainings, whether Zola or the community portal or even census data, they've put a lot of thought into putting it into one portal that the Borough President's Office is very interested in making sure that all community board members know about, community board chairs and district managers. And this is part of our effort to getting this information to you here today.
We'll get you information about this Boston app too that would in fact add to that. It's amazing. I was using it this morning. It's phenomenal.
Great. Well, thank you to both the Borough President and to Aldrin for inviting us here today. We too viewed this as a sort of fortuitous opportunity to share with all of you some work that we've been doing to expand and improve the resources that our agency provides on our website that we see as tools and resources that hopefully are valuable to you in your preparation of the community district needs statement and also in your day-to-day planning activities. We have an overview of our agenda here, but the main focus of our presentation is really to do a brief interactive walkthrough of 3 tools that we have on our website. The community portal, which we launched earlier this month, which was a joint interdivisional effort at our agency that has been underway and under development for the past 1.5 years. So it's been a source of a great deal of effort at our agency to streamline the resources that we have available and update and enhance them for your use. Zola, which was initially launched a couple of years ago, but recently there was a new update to it that was made available. So we'll walk you through that tool. And then we also have the Census Fact Finder that has a host of demographic, socioeconomic data and comparison trends that is a very useful tool, we hope, to all of you in preparing your statements. And then we'd like to talk a little bit about the statements of needs themselves. I appreciate the questions that Borough President Brewer posed at the outset of the meeting, because under our new director and chairman, Carl Weisbrod, we have been giving renewed focus to these statements. And the statements themselves and the process that the charter envisioned for them to better understand how they can be reconnected into the capital budget planning process. And we're at the beginning of this effort, but from our perspective, one of the most important pieces of that is that the statements themselves are refreshed, that they're complete, that the content within them is an accurate depiction of the current state and needs of your community boards. And it's important that those statements themselves can serve as a tool for evaluation during the capital budget process. And we're also starting to look at what happens on the other side of the process once they are submitted to OMB and used in the borough budget consultations. How are agencies evaluating them? What tools are they using to evaluate them? What does that process look like? And we're thinking about that in the context of how our agency is evaluating community needs in the context of our efforts to foster ground-up community planning around our agency's goals and the administration's new goals and values. So we're delighted to have you here as a resource for us to learn from you what is helpful to you in preparing your statements and getting feedback on how we together can make them a more meaningful part of a revised and revisited process. So without further ado, I think I touched on a number of these in my introductions, but we're here today to introduce these community planning tools that are available to you. We hope that they support your preparation of your needs statements, which we launched the request for them earlier this month, and they're due on August 4th of next month. We also thought we'd take an opportunity to review the statements in the context of the capital budget process and get your feedback on these tools and enhancements to the process. So our goals and objectives of our agency have been reframed under the new administration. And they reflect the goals, objectives, and values of the new administration. As I'm sure you're all aware, our agency is very much involved in the Mayor's Affordable Housing Plan, and we will be launching a series of 15 neighborhood studies in conjunction with this plan, in addition to all of the planning work that we do in communities across the city. But affordable housing very much is at the forefront of our focus.
Do you know which ones in Manhattan yet of the 15, or you don't know yet?
It's still being assessed and prioritized.
Okay.
But in economic development, part and parcel with housing production and preservation, we view that economic development both in terms of how we foster job creation and how we view and develop a strategy for looking at our manufacturing districts and our commercial districts and how those can help to foster growth across all 5 boroughs that also contribute to that last bullet of reducing inequality, sort of growing the pie rather than just looking at how we slice that pie.
And GD and Susan and I want to save the small mom and pop stores. I just want to.
Well, we do too.
I know, I'm just teasing because they dickens at them. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Got it. Livable neighborhoods.
Everybody.
Livable neighborhoods, which is very much been a focus of our agency for at the core of our planning goals. But livable neighborhoods, really thinking about beyond just the the land use and zoning. What are the components that make livable communities and sustainable communities? What are the other services that are needed within communities? What other aspects of day-to-day life and enhancements to our neighborhoods are necessary to be able to make them more livable, including things like parks and open space and looking at other quality of life issues. Resiliency and sustainability, the Borough President mentioned this. Certainly post-Sandy, this has become a much more intense focus of our agency in collaboration with the Mayor's Office and other agencies. in looking at how we make our neighborhoods both more resilient to future weather events, but more sustainable in terms of our energy consumption and other sustainability goals. And reducing inequality is very much an overall umbrella that relates to all of the different policy areas of our planning work, and is very much a sincere reflection of this administration's renewed focus on this and expanding these opportunities for New York City residents citywide. So, onward. So the three tools that we're about to introduce to you are the community portal, which, as I mentioned, we launched earlier this month, and that we have put a great deal of effort into making a one-stop shop for you as a planning tool on our website. The intent is that this is where the community district needs statements will be housed. As you'll see, Ralph will walk us through this, we've organized the portal by community district. And so within each community district, there are a bevy of different resources related to your community district. And the idea is that the statements would be housed here in addition to other planning and mapping tools. And we will be updating the resources within the portal periodically based on when our data is available and when different components of it are updated. So rather than waiting, in the past we used to have a printed version of the Community District Needs book that included both the statements and a wealth of other resources in a sort of static printed form. Now we're able to use the technology to be able to refresh things more frequently as they become available and make sure that the statements are front and center there for you to use as a resource, for the public to see, and for all those other purposes that we touched on before. Zola will walk you through how to use that, both in terms of looking at the statements and just in your day-to-day planning activities. And Census Fact Finder, that's our online map application that has demographic and socioeconomic information that is reflective of our population division's work. So without further ado, we'll walk through these, and what I'll suggest is that as we present them to you, if you have questions about components of them, you can ask those along the way, and then we have reserved time at the end of the presentation to accept broader questions from you all. I think that covers it.
Okay.
So Ralph will take us through the next steps.
Yeah. Thank you very much. I just want to echo what Sarah said. Thank you for having us here. The community portal is basically a repository of community relevant data, and we made it available in a format for individual community districts. So that was the main goal, having data available on a community district level. I apologize for not getting up. I want to show you a couple of things.
Everybody can hear, right?
Yes.
Interactively, So the first thing that I wanted to show you is the community portal. And a lot of the information on the community portal you are familiar with. It has been on our website before, but it was in many different places. And one big goal that we had with the community portal was to create a one-stop shop for all that information. The community portal is organized, every district page is organized into 4 sections. The first one has a district profile, basically like a snapshot of the community district and some of the key information about the community district. Then there's a tab for projects and resources that provides you with links to, for example, ongoing land use applications that are going on in your district, but also citywide studies that affect your district. Then the third tab is population data that is also prepared in a way that it applies to your community district. It has general demographic information, but also socioeconomic data, for example, income levels, housing characteristics, those kinds of things. And then we also provided some mapping resources here. And actually what I just saw is we also have this presentation that I'm showing you right now available here. So if you want to read it again later, it's now available online as well.
I have a question about projects and resources. When I was in the council, I made a stupid mistake and I said, I'm going to do a blog of all of the projects in the 6th council district. What a nightmare. In other words, where is this ULURP application at, right? So you have to, it's minute by minute almost. You know, this is the date of the ULURP, this is when the certification took place, blah, blah, blah. This is as of right, this isn't. People want to know, why is this building going up? You know, etc. Is that going to include all of that information? It's very time consuming, that's what I'm asking.
Yeah, it includes the information if it's a non-as-of-right development project. Everything that is as of right, the Department of City Planning doesn't generally touch.
Right,
but everything that needs
but so you wouldn't do, I'm just asking because I know I get asked this question, if it's a landmarks only, because people don't know the difference between building going up as of right, landmark, meaning they have to go to LPC for something, etc. So would it make it clear on your information that this is only where there is, I don't know how you want to phrase it, but some kind of zoning change, not LPC, not as of right, etc. In other words, if you drive people to that part, because people will be interested in that, then you need to make it clear that this is this and not that.
Right. Our portal is reflective of all land use projects that are going through or that have gone through ULURP or the Department of City Planning's processes. Okay. So to be
But will it be kept up to date? Because it's very hard to keep these.
And historically, it has all of the archives of projects.
Okay. And is that feeding to the Open Data portal, or are you linking to it from the Open Data plan or the Open Data website?
That's our bill, so be careful.
I hear you. No, we have a very large inventory of data that our agency produces that feeds into Open Data. Those are major data sets like all of the land use and Pluto data, for example, that our agency prepares and maintains. Those serve as a basis for the maps and resources that are presented at the community district level in the portal. But in terms of the land use projects themselves, though we have a number of databases that we prepare in-house, Loomis and BlueCats, which I would have to look at our inventory to see if those are represented within Open Data, but our in-house databases that track and monitor the land use projects that come through city planning are all represented in the portal.
So I'd say at a minimum, you should probably have a link out, at least somewhere in the Open Data plan, saying city planning also maintains this separate sort of standalone thing, and you can find it, you know, at least providing a link would be really helpful. And my other question is, are you guys, you mentioned capital projects in the resources tab, is that connected to or feeding from the Mayor's Office of Operations capital projects dashboard?
It is those capital projects.
It's not the dashboard yet. It's basically the adopted capital budget that's reflected there.
But you're not tracking what a project actually works on?
We incorporate what is published in the capital budget. We're talking with operations about making all those linkages better. We also have now at City Planning a dedicated capital budget planning person, and he just started, so but he has some ideas of exactly doing that, like mapping capital projects and also sort of reporting on the progress of capital projects. But once again, he started a week ago.
I would say those encompass some long-term goals that we have.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I ask a quick question? Yeah. So we do have information.
David is chair of community board number 2.
Hi, good morning. Do you have projects that don't come to city planning on there as well, like School Construction Fund Authority projects or POX projects that CPC never sees, or DCA, Department of City Planning?
No, these projects that are captured here, and we can show you them as we go through the portal, are reflective of city planning's processes.
Yes, Christine?
So I think that's a little bit, I want to amplify on that. In order to do the planning and the statement of district needs, we take not just what city planning, but city planning should be doing all of it, right? And so, you know, first, are you going to have business improvement districts represented into the profiles?
As far, I mean, there's an application process for the business improvement district.
No, I'm talking about if I have a district, and within that district I have overlay of 2 or 3 or 4 now business improvement district. I think it's important because these are overlaying resource or whatever.
That's helpful feedback, thank you.
And then, you know, having schools resource, transportation resource, parks resource, health resource. How many health providers or health centers do we have in a district?
Yeah.
It's a very important number. So when we do planning, we need to look at all those things in relation to the population.
Yeah, what we do have, and maybe it's better if I just show you.
We're very active on questions.
Yeah.
Sure.
No?
And some of them may be answered through our presentation, so we'll continue further.
So
I started it.
So that's just so the way you access the data is you go to this map and you can just pick your community district, and that brings you to the profile page. And as I said, the profile page basically has some key information that should give you like a first glance or first impression of the community district. We are working on redesigning that particular page, see what other data might be important. Maybe there's some information that we still want to provide, but it's less important to have this in this prominent place. So that is also very much a work in process. So then the next tab, as I said, is projects and resources. And it has ongoing projects, like large city planning initiated projects going on in a particular district, but also citywide initiatives that affect a particular district. And then, since you asked, you have here the access to LUCATS, and that is the land use and environmental review application tracking system that is here. And if you click here, it automatically brings you to all the currently active land use applications in that particular district.
And I'm sorry, this is in the Open Data Portal or is not? LUCATS?
I mean, it is openly available data. So,
we can confirm.
We're praised on the open data.
I just think this would be really useful for like an app development perspective. This information.
We can certainly confirm for you.
All right, we won't bother you.
Within our division, our planning coordination division, Matthew Croswell is our open data coordinator. So I can certainly follow up and get back to you.
So I take a note here. Yeah. And then if you just click on the link here, it gives you more information about a particular project. And you mentioned before, in order to keep up with the different steps of the process, this is not a particularly good project because it doesn't seem to have a lot of milestones yet. But it has all the different milestones. When is the public hearing? When is the borough president's hearing? And that gets updated on an ongoing basis. So that information is all available. The thing is also, so if you access it through the portal, it gets you directly to applications that are relevant for your district. But of course, the general LUCATS application allows you to search for everything citywide, and also search for completed projects. So every completed project has a City Planning Commission report. So if you want to read up on were there any conditions attached to certain approval, then you can access that information through LUCATS and that system. And there's also a separate link for CPC reports, and as I said, it's more the historical perspective, and they are now searchable back to 1938 when the when the Department of City Planning was actually founded. And then it also has the budget list of capital projects, and this is data we get from OMB, so we don't do anything with it. But it has basically sorted by geography, by community district, the capital projects that were approved for a particular district. Also, you mentioned information about facilities and sites in your district. Planning Coordination also maintains a database of selected facilities and program sites. And this basically has information about all city-owned or city-financed programs, be it healthcare-related, schools, etc. It also has information on transportation facilities and waste management sites that was added a couple of years ago at the request of the council. So you find information about all those facilities in here. So it starts with schools, and then it has a whole slew of different, of all kinds of community facilities and other program sites. It has information about parks, and it also has information about enrollment, which is probably of relevance and importance for you.
One thing I would add here, and we can show you how to get to this on our website, through the Bites of the Big Apple, which is the second link under selected facilities, you can get to mappable versions of that data. So to your question about how can we see what's going on with other agencies' projects, it's not specifically projects, it's more of their facilities, and we have a mappable version of all of the different community facilities within different community districts.
So what would be helpful though is that when we are planning is we need to know, for example, school, how many school seats we have by population. As the population is growing, we don't know the ratios. So to have data which supports our demands, that's what, or how many beds we have in hospital, how many, we need to know, not map is useful, but also we need stats so that we know
that information,
why and how we ask.
That information is in there. So the mapped information there's this data attached to that map. So it tells you how many beds or what the capacity of that particular facility is. And of course we also provide demographic information. So you can do math on like what is, how many children age 5 through 18 do you have in your district, and how does that relate to schools, for example, in your district. The problem is there's a lot of data out there, and there's so many different things that you can do with the data that we want to be helpful in providing you important data, sort of ready-made, but at the same time we cannot anticipate every use for a particular data set. First of all, for us it's important to know what is really important for you, and we can try to provide that for you. But at the same time, one of our goals is also to provide you with the raw data, and then you can use that for your individual purposes.
We're going to be working with the community boards to help them do that.
Mm-hmm.
Great.
Yeah.
That's the question. It's really hard to plan with only facilities that are city financed. For instance, we were just trying to look at NORCs to write in the district needs. And it gives city finance NORCs, but there are also state and evidently federal, and there's no master list anywhere. So you really can't plan by what's in your community. This is true with shelters, everything, hospitals, medical centers. It's very misleading to just look at city finance facilities.
I totally agree, but and we heard that a lot. We're trying to address that issue, but it's also very difficult for us sometimes to get that information. But we hear you, and for our own planning purposes, we often would like to know more what the state is doing.
So stay tuned.
Okay.
It also has a link. If there was a 197A plan in your district, it would link to that 197A plan there as well. So that's in a nutshell what we have on the resources. Then the next tab is population data, and it has information organized by both PUMA and NTAs. So what are PUMAs and NTAs? So basically the Census Bureau has its own geographies. So they start with census blocks, census tracts, and so on. And PUMA are aggregations of those small units that the Census Office uses. And the attempt with those PUMAs, it's basically a puzzle. They try to fit those census tracts in the shape that roughly equals a community district. It's not always 100%, but PUMAs are probably as close as it gets to geography on a census, using Census Bureau information. NTAs are subdivisions of PUMAs that the Department of City Planning came up with. So we recognize that for some planning issues, census community district is very big, and you might be able to differentiate between like parts of a community district. So the city planning, the population division, came up with the NTAs, which stands for neighborhood tabulation areas. So, as you all know, there's 59 community districts, roughly equaling PUMAs, and there is 188, I think, neighborhood tabulation areas. So there's like between 3 and 4 NTAs in every community district, and the information that we provide, that the population division provides, is both on the PUMA level, roughly equaling community districts, and on the NTA level.
Joe Salvo was head of the census at city planning. He's the coolest guy in city government. You can call him, you get him, he answers his phone, you ask him a question about any census tract in the city of New York, and he gives you the answer. He's the coolest guy in city government.
Encyclopedic knowledge.
He cannot retire ever.
We hope so too, that he won't retire for a long time. And then the kind of information that we have here is, first of all, you get a map, and then you can also see how really do the PUMAs overlap with the community district, and what are the boundaries of the neighborhood tabulation areas. Basically, you see here at the solid colors are the PUMAs, and the red outlines are the community districts, and in most instances they pretty much match what the community districts are. And then you have the information organized thematically. So demographic information gives you information about the age cohorts in your community district. So you mentioned NORCs. You mentioned school planning, so obviously you want to know how many children you have in your district, how many people over 65 you have in your district, and so on. So this information is available here. It also has information about the ethnic and racial makeup of the community district. So that's the basic demographic information. Then it has the social profile. So it has information about household composition. Is it a female-headed household? For example, are the people in the household, are they related, and so on. So it has a whole bunch of social indicators. It has information about educational attainment, how many people have finished high school, how many people have bachelor degrees, and so on. We can't really go in detail through all those different tabs, but
People know that.
yeah. We have economic information, unemployment, people in the labor force, and so on. Then, obviously, in light of the affordable housing discussion, we also have selected housing characteristics here. And the last tab is provides maps. So we provided some canned maps for the individual districts. So for example, you will find a land use map for your district here. We also have a base map here that is basically an empty map that you can use for highlighting, identifying certain issues in your neighborhood. And then we also have maps for political districts and how they overlap with community districts. So we have city council, we have state assembly, state senate, and congressional districts.
That's the only map you really know.
And it then also has links to the city map and to Zola as well. And speaking of Zola, that's the next feature I want to present to you. So if you access it through the portal, it brings you automatically to the district you selected. But obviously, you can search for every location in the city. You can search by address, borough, block, and lot, and so on. But the other thing is that Zola also hosts a whole variety of other information as well. So if you can get zoning information, for example, and obviously you can zoom in to wherever you need to be. You can also get information about special districts in there. Then it also has information about land use, that is the layer that's already on there. It also now, and this is a new thing, it has information on city-owned and leased properties. So this is information that used to be in the Gazetteer and the Atlas of city-owned properties, which was not particularly accessible, to say the least. So this information is now contained in Zola. And if you just go there, let me just turn off some of the layers so it's not all the...
That's very helpful.
We've been working with DCAS on this.
And does that show if a city-owned lot is vacant or underutilized?
Yes.
It shows, these are the categories.
So those are the categories that are shown here. So it has cultural and recreational facilities, educational facilities, but it also has properties with no use.
And yes, exactly.
That's very fabulous.
Okay. And also this information will be updated by November this year. So every 2 years the the Gazetteer and Atlas is updated. So November of this year is when we expect that new information.
As part of the citywide statement of needs process, and as Ralph said, the biannual publication of the Gazetteer and Atlas, DCAS does a data verification for all of those uses, and that will be incorporated and reflected in this.
And you mentioned bids before, so this Zola also shows you the outline of business improvement districts.
Great.
And in many instances, if you look for a particular information, let's just try. Obviously, it shows you the location on the map, and when you click on features, you get more detailed information about that particular property. So, for example, it tells you what zoning district it's in, it tells you the block and lot number, but it also gives you a whole slew of building and property information that we get from the Department of Buildings. It's really a very useful tool to find out all kinds of information.
Christine, go ahead. Question?
Yeah.
It would be really helpful. I find myself very often going to an address, and then from this address I want to go to the BIS, to the Building Information System, and then I want to go to the financial system to see who owns the lot and what's the tax lot. And so if there were a link and the search could carry on through that, so I don't have to do the search 5 times.
There is actually, so it gets you so it's all linked
so it does
together.
that.
It does that.
That's fabulous.
Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Yeah, so it has tax information.
And the building information as well?
I believe so. Yeah, this leads you to, this is linked to DOB data.
This one is HPD.
This is violation information, but it
building
has
profile?
probably the building profile.
BES.
Yeah, so it has all those. Yeah.
And this was an effort of our IT division.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Working really closely with all of those sister agencies to get it together.
That's huge. That's really great.
So the so we talked about the community portal, and we talked about Zola a little bit, and now I want to talk just a few minutes about the Census Fact Finder. So the U.S. Census Bureau has a fact finder for all of the U.S., but if you have looked into that, it's very complicated to navigate. So the New York City Census Fact Finder was developed by Joe Salvo's shop to provide census data that is more useful for folks in New York City. So it basically also has information both by census tract, which is smaller than the neighborhood tabulation areas, but it also has information by neighborhood tabulation areas, and the information on the Census Tract Finder is based on the 2010 census. So it's basically just demographic information. If you want to have all the socioeconomic information, that is based on the American Community Survey. And that information I just showed you on the portal is available there, and that's also more up to date than the census information. The census is more accurate, so you have a trade-off here. Census gets stale, obviously, after a couple of years, but the census, the ACS is not as precise. I heard we only have a few minutes left, so I just want to talk a little bit about the community needs statement and the budget process. So what we really want to refocus our attention, city planning's attention on, is the community district needs statements are the starting point of the budget process, and we want to make it a meaningful component of the budget process. This might take a while, and it's a work in progress, but we are determined to make that shift. And this is just a very brief overview and a very simplified overview of the city's budget process. But what you can see here is that the district needs statements are intended to be at the beginning, and that the city government should be planning for community needs. That's the whole point of government. We invite you to take it seriously. We will be taking it more seriously. We will be working with OMB and our new capital budget persons to make the CD needs process a meaningful process that really responds to community district needs and community needs. Another thing I just wanted to highlight very briefly is this year, and we sent this out to the district managers and the community boards throughout the city. We also provided a worksheet for the district needs statements. Our hope was to give especially districts who haven't submitted needs statements in the past, or not particularly meaningful needs statements, a guideline and a tool to make them more meaningful. And what we did was we basically identified 10 areas that are of interest for communities. If we missed something, we are obviously happy to add things to that list as well. This is ongoing and a work in progress. And what we did for each of those sections, we have a purpose statement, and we also came up with a couple of questions that can guide your discussion about formulating district needs. So this, for example, is parks and open space. So which parks, for example, in your district are over and underutilized? So obviously that's sort of the first step of planning, identifying those issues. And then at the bottom, we also have provided resources in addition to the community portal. The community portal, as you see, it links to all kinds of data information from other city agencies. But here we try to attempt to also link to things that currently are not easily accessible through our website. Here, for example, this links to Parks Department information, and you might also be familiar with the Oasis map that of course also has a wealth of information about open space in New York City. And just as a last note, we also encourage you with your district needs statements to provide as much data and supporting material as possible. The better founded your district of needs statement is, the more difficult it becomes for city agencies to ignore it. They might not. We're trying to get them to listen. But also what we would like to encourage you to do is thinking about adding maps. And it doesn't have to be a fancy map if you don't have the mapping capability, but just showing us a map, for example, this is an area that is always congested, or in this area we have a lot of sanitation problems. That might be an incredibly useful tool for various city agencies. So thank you very much for your attention.
That was a phenomenal piece. Right. So question, yes, Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew Washington is chair of Community Board 11.
Thank you. Thanks for the presentation and the data. It's good to have it in one place and be able to access it easily. Some of us sort of run around the internet trying to find data, so it's nice to have a place where we can access it. Ralph, when you were talking about the statement of district needs, I appreciated your comment that we, being DCP, is going to take this more seriously. My comment interrupting while you were speaking is based on the fact that we hold hearings, we put a lot of work into our statement of district needs and produce some serious reports, and it is clear many times that agencies are not utilizing the statement of district needs, and they're solely focusing on agency goals and not looking at community goals and needs. What's DCP's plan to take this more seriously, to make sure that agencies are utilizing the statement of district needs that we put an enormous amount of work into to identify the challenges in our communities?
Let me first begin with saying that it's really, you're highlighting the issue quite correctly, it's a two-way street. On one hand, there's some community districts that prepare fabulous need statements. There are other community districts that have pretty much given up on the process. Obviously, in order to get a meaningful response from city agencies, the district need statement needs to be well founded and well documented. We recognize that in the past many agencies might not have looked at them as intensively as they should have. What we are planning to do as city planning as part of the process is what happened in the past, we were the ones sort of collecting the need statements, and then we were giving them to OMB, and honestly, we have no idea what happened to them after. We then published them on our website and make them publicly accessible, but it was OMB's job and is OMB's job to distribute them to the agencies and so on, and then prepare the budget negotiations in the fall. What we are doing, so as I said before, we now have 2 dedicated staff at City Planning that will deal with capital budget planning. So they will work with OMB and other city agencies, and they will also be involved in the 10-year capital strategy, all those kinds of things. And the other thing that we as City Planning are doing is we will also review the need statements and add information to them as necessary, and try to get more involved in the process, like after we collected them and handed them over to OMB. It will be an incremental process, so I don't want to promise you that for fiscal year 2016 everything will be great. But we also, we will be working on that, and that's very much on our radar. And we also, I showed you the worksheet that we prepared. We've been talking to our budget person about refining the tool, also getting more standardized information out of the need statements that we can follow up with agencies easier than in the past.
That's very helpful.
Which community board chairs and district managers have received the worksheet and the guidelines? So you're in possession of it? Is everyone in possession? Okay.
To the extent that there anyone who has not, we can.
They all have it.
Everyone should have it.
Yeah.
If you don't, we can follow up and get it to you.
If you send us an email to this address, we can ssend it to you.
I just want to add to Ralph's response on the process. I think what has over time happened is that there's been more of a unilateral conversation between OMB and agencies about needs and about capital budget allocations. There is a shift in thinking about how conversations about those needs and the allocation of capital budget resources, and that decision-making process will happen at City Hall and in the leadership of those agencies. So that's the starting point to be able to make shifts in this process. And we, as Ralph mentioned, we now have a capital budget director where we're thinking about how we can create an evaluation framework to help support the viewing and the weighing of all of these needs against the strategic planning goals for the city on a broader level. So, and I think that will very likely involve, over time it will evolve and involve agencies like operations and the mayor's office and OMB and DCAS that we typically work with through this process. But as Ralph said, we're at the beginning of figuring out those solutions, and the statements of community district needs are a very fundamental piece in it, and so we really want to work on that also.
Hi, David Gruber from CB2 again. Two questions. First of all, congratulations, and together with Gail's Open Data portal, this is a tremendous a lot of work that you've done, so congratulations on that. Two questions quickly. First off, are you available to come to community boards, if not you, and some of your colleagues, and explain it to our committee chairs and other people? Is that something that you're going to take on the road and do an abbreviated presentation, if we ask?
We're starting, first thank you for your feedback and your interest. We're starting to do this at a sort of a macro level because we have a scarcity of resources as we all do in terms of being able to get out to each and every community district across the city. But the way we've started is we held a session at city planning that we invited all community. Thank you.
We got good feedback. My district manager went, and he.
Great. So we started there, and to be able to have sort of a centralized strategy for communication, and then we're doing these follow-up meetings like this at the borough president level, and this thank you has given us the impetus to do this with all of the other borough presidents' office and borough boards. Yeah, good. Leading the way. So we're starting with these, and our goal also is. Now, this presentation is on our website. We hope that we've educated you and that you can help share this information. And we, of course, are available to answer questions as you go through.
The second thing is, you glossed over quickly the tab about housing and affordable housing. And I'm sure other boards are doing this as well, but we're putting together our affordable housing policy for our district, which is the village and Soho and the Chinatown. And the mayor's goal of 200,000 units of preserving and building new housing, we cannot find out data, nowhere. And we are, if nothing else at CB2, I've got a slew of professional researchers who are my board members. We cannot find out how much rent stabilized housing we have in our district and how much we lose every year. We cannot find out, and nobody will tell us, and can you put this is a very important planning tool. We need to know how much stabilized housing that we have in my district. And I need to know historically how much we lose every year. Because everybody who vacates an apartment in my district, that apartment is off rent stabilization forever. And I need to know this.
Yeah. One thing is, so first of all, together with operations and other city agencies, we're currently working on developing a framework of what kind of data we might already have, and we need to gather with regard to affordable housing. One thing that I would recommend looking into is the Furman Center, the state of the city. That's probably.
We did.
Yeah, but this is.
And as Ralph said, under the new administration, this is very much a focus for agencies involved in this. NYCHA, HPD.
We can work with you too. We have some ideas.
And it's another state-city issue is the problem.
Yeah.
We'll work on
It's terrible.
That's right. It is a state city.
Next person recognized is Christine. And then Sandra.
Yeah, so I mean, this is a great effort. Thank you. I'm a little obsessed with data myself, so as you can see. The worksheet, I think, is a great initiative. I think it's going to be. Now, I think you seem very focused on capital, and I thought as part of this whole statement, that was the part that was working the best, because the statement, the capital, usually there are bigger things. Then there is, we have to submit a specific capital priority. So this was fairly organized, and then the elected officials get on it and get very excited. The piece which is really failing us right now is more the operation, because it's amorphous and it's very difficult to quantify, and and nobody listened to us about, I want to have another 20 cops, and I want to have. So that portion needs to be really beefed up and tracked with the and the second thing is that in your list of the worksheet, I think livability, which I translate in quality of life issues, is not one item, and you may want to put that, because these are the things of, I can't get DCP to come out for noise, I can't get, all noise issue, all of those things which are smaller enforcement but make life miserable.
Yeah. Thank you for that feedback, and what I will say is we want your continued feedback as you use that worksheet this year, and let us know what improvements we can make to help your process.
Next question?
So I just wanted to also echo, it is a great tool.
Introduce yourself.
Sandra Schrod, Community Board 6. I wanted to say it is a great tool. It looks like that this will be a great time saver, having much of these data points in one easily accessible package. It does seem a little complex though, and while I don't think that maybe you should go from community board to community board explaining it, perhaps like a webinar or some sort of primer beyond the presentation, and just an example of how the different points can be used or not used, I think would be very helpful, because it's going to be very difficult for all of us to share this with our 50-member boards individually.
Thanks for that feedback.
Okay. Yes.
I want to thank you very much for coming, and your event the other week was very informative as well. This was the first time that we've ever had an experience cooperating like this.
Great.
Thank you.
Well, we're glad to start that and keep it moving as we go forward. And we anticipate that as we dive into the challenges of examining the capital budget process and reconnecting this and other related processes, a citywide statement of needs, for example, we will continue to need your feedback on your experiences to help inform our reforms. So we see this as the beginning of a dialogue around this table and tables around the city.
Yes.
Yep, Nick Vias, Community Board 8. Again, thank you very much for coming. I think that is quite very good, because it gives information and pushes it down at the levels where we can get feedback to you that's meaningful. So that if we have questions and want to talk to you, we should go to this email address, and that's the best way to do it, to contact you, right?
Yeah. Yes. What we also did this year internally, we told our borough planners that we started the process and that they should familiarize themselves with the resources. So also feel free to reach out to them, to your liaisons at city planning, and if you have specific questions about data, something like that, they might be able to help as well. But obviously the CD needs email addresses.
Yeah, the CD needs DL, and also sign up for the RSS feed that's available on our website, because that will be the way that we'll be pushing out the updates to the portal over time.
Could you put the contact information up so we can copy it, or what is it?
And we could get that out as well.
Where? Oh, okay.
And again, this presentation is now on our website. So, and this information is also there.
Where is it? On
City Planning Commission.
City Planning.
NYC.gov/planning.
Oops.
So send the
We
link
lost
out.
you.
I'll do it too.
All right, any other questions?
Thank you again.
Thank you again.
Thank you.
We'll go to Community Board Chair Reports, and we'll start with Community Board 12. Community Board 11.
Yeah, Community Board 11 is currently on break, which I'm thankful for. But we have a vacancy in our district manager position, so we are in the process of selecting a new one, so we'll probably meet in August so that we can do that. Good candidates, we're excited about moving that forward. There's also quite a bit of development happening on top of the East River Plaza, where Costco and Target exists on 116th Street in the FDR. There is talks about a development on top of that facility, about 1.2 million square feet of residential. So it's something that we are looking at and we'll be dealing with this summer. We anticipate certification of ULURP sometime in the fall. So we'll be dealing with that quite a bit, and a number of other development projects. Also, we have been talking some with the City Parks Foundation. They are really looking at parks and looking...
Quiet out there, please. Go ahead.
Looking at parks and looking at you know, how they can better support access to parks and better access for community residents. We're focusing a lot on our NYCHA housing stock. A lot of NYCHA development around the city is very close to the waterfront in particular, but the way they've been designed, they're sort of cut off, and so a lot of NYCHA is either right on or very close to the waterfront, and so really thinking about how we begin to open it up and create better connection and access points to open space, particularly for residents of NYCHA, since they are so close, but there is an inherent barrier. So really thinking about some planning and how we do that a little bit differently this summer.
Community Board 10?
No, I'm not 10, I'm 9.
She's here.
Community Board 10?
No.
Okay.
Community Board
9.
Yes, good morning. CB9 is on break for the summer, but we're very excited about participating in a street co-naming this morning for Patricia Jones. As you may or may not know, Pat Jones was a former chair of CB9. She was very instrumental in getting our 197A document online, as well as the West Harlem rezoning and Manhattanville expansion, just to name a few of the things that Pat has done. So that street co-naming will be today. Charlie Rangel will be speaking on her behalf, Mark Levine, and a few other elected officials. So we're very excited about that. So I'm gonna disappear now so that I could be part of that. I can't call, but I know that, I think Athena's gonna. Yes, Athena will. Oh, great. Thank you. Board 10, what happened to you? Board 10.
Board 10, hello.
Hello.
Yeah, so we're out of session also.
We noticed.
Well, we are having a committee meeting tonight to handle some SLA applications. Besides that, there's development things going on, like with Lennox Terrace, but that hasn't begun yet. We're just in the preparation stages for that. So besides that, we're looking forward to the new session.
With Lennox Terrace, what we're going to be doing, I hope, is working with the residents and with you and with some of the institutions in the area, the hospital, Schomburg, and others, as well as residents and some businesses, to try to do what we call the South Street Seaport model. But to try to do something where we have a discussion with the developer, the residents, you, and all the stakeholders, to see if we can come up with some kind of consensus. I want to thank you because I know you've been involved at the many meetings. So I hope that works. We're going to try.
And thank you too.
Just one issue. I'm going to pass around my cell phone. There's a picture that describes what I'm going to talk about. At Asphalt Green, where the construction is going on for the marine transfer station, we had an incident where a jackhammer chisel that weighed 10 pounds broke off from equipment. The force of it was so great, it flew up to the 4th floor of the building and shattered a window, crashed through the window, fell within feet of a lady that was working out on an exercise mat. She only sustained minor injuries, fortunately from broken glass. But you can appreciate that it could have gone anywhere, and if there had been kids on the other side and had flown in another direction, I don't know what would have happened. So we have very strong concerns about the safety measures that have been instituted, and also in terms of the construction going on right now while there are still kids using this facility. The sanitation or the city department in charge of this project is basically saying, Design and Commission is the department, is basically saying that they will not perform construction on the upper part of the ramp. They call that the ramp. We say it should be the entire ramp, which is where this accident happened. We're also asking, they have agreed to stop construction and do a complete investigation. They fired a number of the workers. They are taking action, so we do appreciate that. The problem is, I don't know how you mitigate something like this, and the problem is, as demonstrated here, one problem like this, and you can have serious injury or worse. And especially with kids, the threshold just has to be higher. So we have very strong concern. You can see, the other thing I'll point out is what you saw, I passed this around, you can see the nature of the problem. And at the end of the day, I'm not sure something like that you can mitigate, but that's the problem that we have. We are going to be writing a letter to Design and Commission to outline our significant concerns about this and ask them to halt construction until that summer camp is over. And then also to make sure that that all safety measures are employed, and that they actually increase the measures that they have now.
Thank you very much, and thanks for all your leadership. It's been quite a stressful situation on all levels.
Community Board 7.
Great. So actually tonight we have our first task force meeting on planning. So this presentation today was really helpful, and it's going to be a tremendous resource for that group of people. Unfortunately, many of you have read, there was another pedestrian fatality along West End Avenue. I think despite all of our community board best efforts in trying to study, traffic patterns and plan to try to prevent these things from happening, can't control people who don't know the rules of the road and don't know how to drive in the city, and it's another really unfortunate bit of news. A bunch of development projects that we've had brought out, pretty much like half of the Upper West Side, it seems, a project on 79th Street regarding a new luxury building that may go up. Collegiate School, the Collegiate School project we saw the design for this week, over the past week, which has brought out a lot of concerns in the community about sort of the mix of retail that may be along part of the project, and also some transportation issues associated with that. We have a housing forum coming up, affordable housing forum set up for September, and our next B2B, which is going to involve other Manhattan pieces of Manhattan community, are going to be invited as well. That's the second week of October. And then just a housekeeping thing, I guess, which we had a very contentious vote on playground back in June. The vote was on July 1st at our full board meeting, and one of the things I've learned when you have a bunch of competing sides on an issue, but both feel very passionately about something, is that they like to talk a lot. And so we we sort of gave strict time limits for each side before the meeting started. And I'm sure most of you as board chairs implement things like this too, but it was incredibly helpful to letting the meeting flow in an efficient fashion. I think one of the biggest complaints I get is that CB7 meetings run until very, very late in the evening, and despite it being a very heated issue, people adhered to the rules. They did a great job each side presenting, and we came to a vote and a resolution swiftly. So that's it for me.
Congratulations.
It was very effective too to have the different groups choose among themselves who they wanted to speak, so they wouldn't repeat issues over and over again.
Right. I wish it could be that smooth all
Has
the time.
anybody else done the B2B, the business to business? Have you had any luck with that? Are you still thinking about it?
We're going to get your writing because we're coordinating with that.
Okay.
I sent the representative over.
Good.
We've started.
Great, you have. Okay.
Yeah,
You should make sure that your wonderful leaders know that.
Okay. Yeah, they're definitely.
I think they've been
inviting.
working with the two folks
Yes.
on Board 7. Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I wanted to. So we've also been at recess, but we've been hard at work with the East Midtown rezoning, both the first the Vanderbilt Avenue corridor DEIS, as well as the task force and larger one. But last Tuesday we also had a quality of life forum with Gramercy Park Neighborhood Association, as long also with Council Member Mendez. And I think that went very well, and we have some new feedback on things that we're going to provide for some of the maps that we're now going to be including in the district needs statement. So it is actually very helpful to kind of get some of those resources available to us now as we're forming them. And I just wanted to wrap up with kind of thanking the Borough President specifically for attending and hoping to join the initiative on keeping Stuyvesant Peter Cooper Village affordable.
Well,
So thank you.
Thank you. Community Board 5. Community Board 4.
Yes, thank you. So no recess for us. August will be recess, and French tradition, obviously. I have to start with it. We had another horrible crash with 2 tourists were not killed, thankfully, but severely injured by a turning bus on 47th Street.
One person lost her leg, though, I think,
right?
Right.
One
of bus?
Commuter,
bus?
no, a commuter bus, one of
Commuter
those,
buses,
you know, Pennsylvania back and forth, and you know, it kind of illustrates 2 things. First of all, the safety issues. We have been asking for DOT to give us a lot of split phases, and we can't get through them, that this is the solution. They have installed one of them, which is very successful at 43rd Street. And it's really such a hard work to get them to do the next one, and we typically have to wait until somebody gets killed to get a split phase, and I find that very primitive. You know, we have to sacrifice somebody to the gods of DOT, and then we get something. So this is not the way we should be operating, and I'm, you know, since it has been 6 months, I'm anxious to see what is the plan for Vision Zero. What are the corridors? What are the intersections? What is the plan? We have given a lot of input. But on this one, we need all the help we can get. We need split phase. The second thing that it highlights is buses, and you have all heard about buses. I just want to point in our neighborhood, we have 1,500 arrival and departures per day for non-Port Authority buses. And then Port Authority buses on the top of that is 6,800 a day. All of that is in our neighborhood every day. So I'm really happy that Borough President Brewer has initiated a sort of task force for regulating, operating, guidelining the buses, but you know, it's not just downtown. I think if you want to talk about ground zero for buses, this is Hell's Kitchen, is it? And we need a lot of help because DOT is not enforcing the laws that have been passed, and we cannot get enforcement from NYPD. And finally, we are coming to next Monday. We'll have a final read on our affordable housing plan to create 10,000, to create and retain 10,000 units of affordable housing, and we will pass it probably next week at the full board and publish it, and that's very, very exciting. Thank you.
Thank you. Gigi stepped out.
Your report actually has to do with something according to her notes.
Well, I'll come back to the community board.
I know, but everybody talks about downtown
board
buses,
too?
and I get nervous. You know, we have so many of them.
No, go ahead.
Okay, quickly. So we also are in the midst of our affordable housing policy. We've been working on it for a while. We're really into the weeds of it, of the problems with tax abatement. If you use the 421A, you know you're at 60% AMI, which means that our community will not get, if they use that, because we're in the exclusionary zone, we will not get, you know, middle-class housing at 110 or 120 of AMI, and we're trying to figure out and appeal to the city and state to tinker with the 421A abatement. So, not to say that it's not important for low-income housing, but I need to have a mixture in our community so that, you know, cops and teachers and middle management, administrators, city workers also are priced out of housing, and the, you know, artists can no longer live in Greenwich Village, just so you know. So working with, we have, and also I just want to say, I have 7 bids in my district, all are in part, which is the highest in the city. It accounts for 12% of all bids in New York City. And why it's under the small business services, because it has nothing to do any longer with small businesses. It's very large landlords who are controlling bids. They've become very powerful. And so far, SBS refuses to meet with me to have a conversation about everybody's trying to deal with it. They will not meet with me. You know, we've now have, instead of being in the bid district, which they don't want to have residential people in, and working with you, Christine, we have what's called impact zones that we've attached to the bids on the map, and we've given them a seat at the board, but it's been an uphill fight, and I need this agency to start looking at alternative ways, because there are no business cores anymore. Residential areas have grown around business areas like wisteria plants, and unless we recognize the residential components of a bid, it's not going to work any longer.
Okay, I got that.
Okay, we opened our new Lenox Hill Flex, why it's called Lenox Hill in Greenwich Village. Somebody will explain to me later on, but that's how they're branding it. Would it be the Greenwich Village Flex up on Lexington and 88th Street? Anyway, so it's a $140 million facility. I think you were there, Gail, at the opening. I was there. And it's amazing it's amazing. I mean, this is an amazing facility, and maybe it's the future of medicine. Maybe these facilities, and then they feed the hospitals. We'll see.
It's emergency, not urgent. That's the difference.
It's a comprehensive
It's not
emergency.
trauma.
It's not a trauma, but they have the state of, I mean, it is really something to see. It's really amazing. I have never seen a medical facility like this. We'll see when they open how it works out. Working with you, Gail, about the air rights transfers from Hudson River Park, which boards 1 and 4 and 2 are involved with. I think we may be going somewhere actually with this. I think we've moved forward. It's no longer going to be a GPP, which is where the state could override the zoning, but we're going to go through ULURP. City planning has not been responsive to my working group idea, although I've called several times.
Okay.
And maybe we ought to sit and maybe you could help me with
Okay.
penetrating the the iron period of this new administration, which we all love, but it's very hard. And so also, I like how you phrase the sacrificing the gods of DOT. Just quickly, and I can move on. We have a situation where we have a stupid thing on Carmine Street where pedestrians have a green and cars have a green. It's just one of these anomalies. And so we appealed to DOT to have a 10-second delay. 10-second delay. Right, so that people could cross the street without dodging the cars. And they said, no, can't do that because statistically not enough people have been injured. Actually, it's ridiculous. Seriously, you should see
You need to have a dead person.
Because Vision Zero is great. Is great at the top, but the guys in the middle management, engineers who do this,
don't get it.
They don't get it. No. And so that's the problem. It's not filtering down. I can't get a 10-second delay so that you don't have a barn dance of cars and pedestrians, crossing 6th Avenue.
We got it.
Okay.
But it's very bad.
This is my 2 minutes,
I'm
Gail.
very good at, give me a problem, I'm like a dog with a bone.
This is my 2 minutes to try, Gail. Okay. Okay. I'm passing the chair to Gigi.
Sorry, I apologize. Yeah, so I will stick to my three highlights. And I don't think I had the opportunity to say this at the last full board, but HUD and Big U Rebuild by Design, the awards were announced I think a month and a half ago, and Community Board 3 and part of Community Board 6, $335 million for phase 1 of a berm implementation, so that's very exciting and overwhelming. It's a resiliency. It was the HUD competition. They had the whole kind of west side through east side, different sort of plans by area, and our area was the one that was picked.
Is this the Big U?
Yes, it's the Big U.
Biarca Angles.
Yes.
I see.
Yes. So that process is happening kind of very quickly, and we think that it will, we are pushing very strongly for a community engagement process. I've started to have conversations with the mayor's office and so on and so forth, and it will be multi-agency,
to Borough, to board. It's going to be interesting, but we're starting to work out what that would look like and how it would involve all of the electeds and community boards. And then we have continued to struggle with the interstate bus situation in Community Board 3. And one of the areas we identified that could really use some help is on the enforcement end of things. So we've had, I think, two meetings now with all of the electeds and DOT. In the last one, we also roped in NYPD, and we talked about kind of what were the challenges in implementation for enforcement. And we laid out a plan and a timeline, and we expect enforcement from the precincts with handing out violations August 15th. That was the date that so we kind of
the bus company, there's a lot of controversy about this issue, as you know.
But I have to ask a question. Therefore, is that is just for CB3, yes, or is it for how come the police doesn't do enforcement across the board? Because in our district.
So I wanted to keep it brief, but basically there will be a citywide memo that goes out from NYPD to all of the precincts that articulate that this new law is in effect, what it means. There will be a new traffic violation code that is then associated with it. They have to put it in the computer so that when they do the ticketing process, they can actually put in the code and the violation. Then it is up to the precincts and the captains to brief and kind of go through the process with their patrol. And so our precincts were at this meeting, and most of our issues are in the 7th and in the 5th. And so their captains have made a commitment so that when this, and knowing that the memo is coming through 1PP, that they will in short order brief their patrol to look for and start taking this issue. I mean, they take all violations seriously, but that this is something that will be that there's some urgency to it. And that they will start kind of executing that protocol.
But your precincts will be getting the memo.
Every precinct is getting the memo. It's then up to, I think, there's a role for community boards here to play to encourage and let their precinct captains know that this is something that's important to them.
Christine, we'll make sure that all the boards get the same memo too. So.
Yes. And then we have a street call meeting.
These bus companies, because I get both sides. I'm with you, but I get both sides of this, as you do, I'm sure.
Right.
So, do the bus companies get notified and something that they can understand also?
Yes. Well, this has been very widely covered in the local press.
I know that.
And I think that we will try to also at all of our transportation meetings talk about this, and I think. There are now block associations and neighborhood groups that have formed to kind of bring this issue to light. So there is a very clear expectation that there is enforcement coming down the pipe. And then there's a street co-naming that's scheduled for August 3rd that is particularly of significance to us. There was a young girl who got struck crossing Delancey Street. And about a year and a half ago, and that was the impetus for the Delancey Street redesign. And then her grandmother is actually a member of CB3, and that was the reason that she joined the board to make a difference, among others. But that street co-naming for the young girl is going to be scheduled for August 3rd.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. We're going to have to be really quick. We have good news coming. First of all, I want to thank your involvement on the bus issue. I saw the letter that Morris forwarded. Two, we had a Seaport working group meeting where the guidelines, the feedback from the open house guidelines on June 2nd, they were very positively received from the community, which was great. Three, we're so happy you got funding in the Big U up north, but I just want to remind the importance of focusing downtown or Manhattan. We had 2 drowning deaths from Superstorm Sandy in Community Board 1. One on Broad Street, south of the New York Stock Exchange, and one in Tribeca. And we had 7 feet of water at the South Street Seaport, and some businesses still have not reopened. Next, we've been working on, we're so happy that the larger fence around the Memorial Plaza has come down. But we're still working out with everybody and anyone on the pedestrian vehicle management around it, because it's created a new pattern since that roughly 3 times as many people are coming to the memorial. We're also concerned about the hours. The community had expected that the Memorial Plaza would be open 24/7. A fence goes around the entire perimeter of the 6 city blocks, or 8 acres, and it's currently extended hours from 9 p.m. to 7:30 a.m. Then we're working also, I'm rushing off to a Grow NYC meeting. We hope the farmers market will return. It will be just south of the site where the queuing line was for the memorial. So we've been again working with everybody from Lower Manhattan Development Corporation, the Port Authority, New York City DOT, NYPD, Downtown Alliance. They've been very helpful as well. 346 Broadway, thank you everybody for your help on that. We're concerned about the community space that that went through with the ULURP. We also would like a clarification of where the Summons Court will be relocated, because that was a deferred process. And our affordable housing guide, which you may originally worked on years ago when she was at Community Board 1, is going through another update. We're working very vigorously on that. And last but not least, I want to invite you all to the Boathouse for free kayaking. They have reopened on July 4th, which is at Pier 26. We will actually be holding our September meeting there. We're very excited. It will be very rustic.
Sitting in kayaks?
Downtown Boathouse. They might be making some benches, but it will be an open view of the Hudson River. We need a microphone, if someone can help us locate a microphone.
The union's always on.
So.
We have that. We don't have
And we are definitely closed for August. We're taking a recess in August, so thank you.
Has Pier 8 opened?
Pier 8?
A.
Oh, Pier 8, no. That's supposed to be at the end of the summer, hopefully. But also a bit of good news is the Battery Park. There is a beautiful public area, and half of that pedestrian area is opened up, which completely makes it much more accessible to get to the waterfront. But we do have an issue with the people selling the bus tickets. And that's a complicated issue.
Any very quick announcements? Agency, I mean, city council member announcements?
Motion.
Stephanie Arroyo from Melissa Margarito's District 8 office. Just an update on the East Harlem explosion. There were a couple of buildings that were affected. Most of them have restored gas. 1652 has restored gas. 89 does not have gas as of yet. However, we're working with, there's some issues with the landlord, and we've been working with HPD. 91, which is also near the buildings that exploded, is pretty much functional. The only problem we have there is that it seems like the lot that was where the building collapsed, there's lead that's airborne. According to the Department of Health and Mental Hygiene, they're fine as long as they keep wiping stuff down, but we're looking for a long-term resolution to this, hopefully maybe putting mulch on where the soil is or wetting the soil. Again, we're working with DEP in regards to that. Most of the families have been placed in homes. There's just like 3 families that aren't placed as of yet, but they're still with REBNY, and those contracts should be ending in August. However, one of the families out of the 3 will be placed beginning of August. So we're hopeful in that, and we're still working with that. We're happy to talk about the pilot that we had with the senior hours at the New York City pools. I don't know if you guys know about that. There are certain hours that are dedicated just for seniors. And because of the successfulness that we've had in all the other pools, 16 other New York City pools have been doing the same. And pretty much we just want to let you guys know that we should be having the youth fair. I think Max Cantarero last meeting had advised you guys. We have our Bronx office now, and we're having a youth fair in the Bronx as well. And that's pretty much it. And thank you so much about the city planning. This is awesome.
Thank you very much. Meeting adjourned. Thank you. Have a great August. Thank you.